welcome in to the Strike Zone podcast. We are going a little bit later tonight. In fact, we are about 25 minutes later than what we normally are. But there's a good reason for that if you are an Atlanta Braves fan, because the game just wrapped up on Bally Sports South, and the Atlanta Braves have clinched the NL East for the fourth consecutive time. Honestly, it's something that I didn't expect to happen if you go back to the beginning of August. So you can start getting those comments in as we go about it, go out throughout the night, and we start talking about what all has went and transpired through this season for the Atlanta Braves. Now, obviously, with all of our Zone TV podcasts, you can always give us a like, give us a share, give us a follow, all on social media, no matter where it is, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, wherever it is. Get those comments in now as we get going on the Strike Zone podcast. The length of this thing tonight is 100% based on how much you want to talk about the Atlanta Braves winning the division tonight, which honestly, when the Braves started looking back and we start going back through this season after losing Acuna, after losing Soroka to last year and not even having him back this season, after everything that happened with Marcell Ozuna, all of that to get to this point where the Atlanta Braves are celebrating the division title, which, I mean, they're still doing it as we speak. I mean, they're still on the field celebrating. We went live the very second that we could here on the Strike Zone podcast because of the fact that we knew that this was a possibility tonight. By the way, for people that may or may not be using particular betting sites to be talking or be trying to see what was happening with the game tonight, letting you know that the under 8.5 was the under. Now, we threw out some podcast questions before this tonight. We did that on our social media feed at 1045 The Zone. Barry is in. How's it going, bro? How excited are you about what just happened in Atlanta and the fact that you did it against the Phillies, which is absolutely tremendous. But our first poll question that we had of the night was, do you think the Braves will clinch? 81% of you that voted said that tonight was the night, and you were absolutely correct. Ian Anderson pitched a tremendous game all the way up till he gave up. I call it a cheap home run. It was a changeup low and inside. Andrew McCutchen just got his bat on it. What are you going to do? But he got that. Now, the next poll question that we put out is going to be something that's going to be discussed over the next few days, obviously, with this Atlanta Braves team. And that is, how far can this team go? Now, this is the way that the playoffs are going to shake up. They will be taking on the Milwaukee Brewers, which, look, there's some poetic things in life, but for the Braves and the Brewers to be playing each other in the playoffs in 2021, when Hank Aaron was connected to both of these clubs, is absolutely just tremendous. The only way that this could have been better is if the Brewers and Braves were playing each other in the NLCS. Like, there is no other more poetic way for these two teams to be playing each other in the NLDS than it would be this. The other great thing is with winning the NLDS, you don't have to worry about the wild card game. You don't have to worry about a one and done. Now the Braves can set their rotation up and they can set up their pitching to see what is going to be happening over the course of the next few days as they get ready for the playoffs. So as we go along throughout the night, you can get in as the players are still celebrating on the field. The coaches are still celebrating. Heck, the broadcast is still going on from Bally Sports South. And I'm making sure that I'm getting the updates as we go along throughout the night, and you can as well. So make sure that you get all those comments in. And look, when this game started and the Braves led off with Jorge Solaire, look, a few weeks ago, actually it was probably a month or so ago, when we started talking about Jorge Solaire and the type of season that he could potentially have for the Braves in this second half that he was having, I had no idea that it would be this impactful for what it was, because he had been a Kansas City Royal for about the last 4 years or so. He was a part of the trade from Chicago to Kansas City to help the Cubs win the World Series. And I feel bad for him because it was him that went to this cavernous ballpark that was the Kauffman Stadium, where you couldn't hit many home runs. And still, with Kansas City 2 years ago, he hit 48. Now, last year, he had 8, 60-game season, put into it whatever you want to. But for Jorge Solaire to go to the leadoff man, look, having Ronald Acuna Jr. bat leadoff is at least something, because he has the speed. He has the ability to beat out a ground ball to third base. He has the ability to beat out a chopper to the shortstop. He has all of that. Do you know how many stolen bases Jorge Solaire has had in his entire career? 10. He's had 10 stolen bases. Now, Major League Baseball has changed so much over the course of the last decade or so, specifically the last 5 years, and it's all because of Joe Madden. But this idea of moving your best hitters up closer to the top of the lineup so that they have more opportunities to hit is something that kind of started with him. He started batting Chris Bryant around second when he was with the Cubs. Didn't want to truly bat him leadoff. He did a couple of times. Every once in a while, Joe Madden would throw Anthony Rizzo and bat him leadoff, because, again, you want your batters to get as many opportunities as they obviously can to get into the batter's box and try to get yourself some runs, some RBIs. But to put Jorge Solaire in there when he was traded to Atlanta batting lower than 200, we say batting, below the Mendoza line, to now be batting 269 for the Braves. He already has 12 home runs. And look, let me emphasize, he has 12 home runs with the Braves. He hit another one tonight to start off the game. He only had 13 for the Kansas City Royals in 94 games. He's already had 12 for the Braves in 53 games. This ballpark is measuring up so well for him. And I know that, we're not focused on the post or on free agency or anything like that with a lot of these players. We know Acuna is going to be back next year. We know, that. But for Acuna to be out, and the Braves did 100% Moneyball on this, okay? And I don't know if you've seen Moneyball recently, but there's a scene in it where Brad Pitt, playing Billy Beane, is sitting around the conference table with all of his scouts. And all of the scouts are throwing out all of these big-name guys, and Billy Beane eventually tells them to shut up. Actually, he does the yak, 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 yak. And what he basically says is he says, look, we're not going to be able to replace Jason Giambi. What we have to do is recreate him. Now, if you're not a proponent of Moneyball and sabermetrics and all this other stuff, basically what Billy Beane was saying in that scene was, look, Jason Giambi has 107 RBIs. Jason Giambi has 40 home runs. Again, I'm throwing numbers out just kind of off the wall. We're not going to be able to find one guy to get the 40 home runs. We're not going to find one guy that's going to give us the 107 RBIs, the 300 batting average. But what we do need to do is to find 1 or 2 or 3 guys that combined can do that exact same thing. I say that because that's what Alex Anthopoulos did at the trade deadline. He can't bring somebody in that could be a Ronald Acuna Jr., but what he did do is he got 2 or 3 players to put and to become Ronald Acuna Jr. Jorge Solaire, Adam Duvall, Jacques Peterson, those 3 guys combined have done exactly what Ronald Acuna Jr. was doing for this Braves team before he was out. Look, all right, we're starting to get comments in. Get those comments as we go on throughout it, no matter where you're watching, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, all of that. And JV says, man, he goes, keep up all the good work. JV, I appreciate it, bro. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you tell your friends and that we appreciate it, because trust me, we got a few more podcasts going, being that the Atlanta Braves are making it into the playoffs. Jeff says, we did it. I'm so happy. Chop on. Barry says, let's go, as the excitement level for all these Braves fans are going. And that's the reason why we wanted to make sure that we got on. Look, it really wouldn't have benefited us to start at 9 o'clock, because at 9 o'clock, it was the top of the 8th inning and the Braves were only holding a 2-run lead. And so it was, look, the Will Smith deal. Okay. I understand Braves fans being upset and still worrying about Will Smith. That's just going to be part of it, man. That's just going to be part of your season. The remainder of this season, you're going to have to worry about Will Smith, but he still has 36 saves. It is the most saves that he has had as a closer in professional baseball. The second most was going to be his 2019 year with the San Francisco Giants, where he had 34 saves. He threw 65 innings that season. He's thrown 66 this season. And the only difference is, in that season, he also had a 2.76 ERA, where with the Braves, he has a 3.55. And I get that it's stressful, but I will tell you right now, that man is coming out of the bullpen these last couple of weeks, and he is throwing flames. I mean, straight fire. And he is pitching tremendously. I know it's stressful. I know it's annoying. I know it's something that is going to piss off majority of the Braves fans. But I'm telling you, this is going to be a postseason that I think the Braves are going to be able to possibly do something that we didn't think they could do last season, or even earlier this year. Look, if you're a Braves fan, we're about to get some more comments as they're rolling in. If you're a Braves fan, think about this. The beginning of August, okay, tomorrow or in about 2.5 hours, it will be October 1st. The Braves have not even been above 500 for 2 months this season. Remember, they were allergic to it. It's like it's poison ivy or other things that you can be allergic to that I can't really think of at this point in time. They were allergic to being over 500. At the beginning of August, they were still below 500. And now they have clinched the division. And yes, they do have the worst record out of every single team that is in the playoffs right now. I absolutely get that, and I know that. But the playoffs is not about the best team. It's about the hottest team. Braves have won 10 of their last 11 games. If you go back to last week, you can go back into our archives. You can go back on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever that is. You can listen to it. The one thing that we talked about with the Major League Baseball and with the way that the playoffs worked for the Braves is when you look at what potential teams the Braves could be playing in the postseason, especially in that first round, you do not want to play the wild card team. You do not want to play the team with the best record, unless you're the team with the best record. The Braves right now are going to be playing the Milwaukee Brewers. They're not going to play San Francisco, who has 104 wins with still about 3 games to go. They're not going to play the Dodgers that have 102 wins with about 3 games to go. They're not playing St. Louis, who basically have won like 18 of their last 19 games. They are playing Milwaukee, who has lost 4 of their last 6, who have been swept by the St. Louis Cardinals in the last 10 days. Milwaukee is the perfect team for the Braves to be playing right now. They struggle hitting the ball. One of their best pitchers coming out of the bullpen, Devin Williams, decided that he wanted to be an idiot and punch a wall. Now, timeout. I have the ability and I have the freedom to say that Devin Williams was an idiot for punching the wall, because I am somebody that when I played, I punched walls, okay? Believe it or not, as crazy as it sounds based on everything that happens on 3HL and these podcasts and the fact that I don't rage quit whenever I'm getting my tail beat on Madden, I have anger issues, okay? Anger management was probably a thing that I needed in the past, okay? Now, I'm showing you this and I want to make sure that you can see my hand, okay? Because if you ever work out, do CrossFit, do anything like that, there's a particular workout where you pick up the barbell and you've got weight on it, okay? It's called front handle squats, I believe is what it's called. And what you want to do is you roll your wrist back as far as you can, and the bar basically sits on your chest. And all you're doing with the bar is you're holding it with your fingers, okay? Now, to turn this around so that you can see it, if you're able to see this on our Zone TV, if you're listening to the podcast, pause it, look up front barbell squats, then come back, okay? And you basically are holding the barbell with these fingers, and that's it. Now, I show you that because if you look at my wrists don't bend that far back. I do not have the ability to go that far back with either one of my wrists. The reason being, I have punched numerous walls. Majority of those have been concrete because they're probably been in a dugout somewhere, okay? Specifically, I can remember Columbia Academy playing in a baseball tournament. I remember striking out. I can say this now. It's been like 20 years. I can say this. And striking out. And when I struck out, I literally came in and did just a full out sprint and just bam, punched the wall. Ran right out to right field in front of, I called it Camden Yards because it has that old gymnasium directly behind right field. That looks so cool. It's probably the reason I loved playing at Columbia Academy. But I did that. Okay, so I know how stupid it is to go punch a wall. But for the Braves, oh my God, this is so fantastic that he did this because that man is going to be one that the Braves were going to have to face late inning some point in time. And now the Braves don't have to do that because he is done for the season because of a wrist injury. Here's how dumb Devin Williams was, okay? And if you don't know anything about Devin Williams, all right, yes, pitcher for the Milwaukee Brewers. He had a 2.50 ERA. He was the setup man along with Hunter Strickland for Josh Hader. And he is going to be the guy that you would see in either the 7th or 8th inning if the Brewers have a lead on the Braves. He is now done for the season. He's pitched in 58 games for Milwaukee. He has struck out like 80 guys so far this season. It's kind of an exaggeration, but not really far off when I talk about how many strikeouts that he actually has this year. But he has been lights out for the Brewers, and he did this because of drunk anger or whatever it is. But he's gone, okay? That is a positive for the Braves, okay? Oh, I'm so sorry your team doesn't have their setup, man. I am really sorry about that. Sorry about your luck. I know we have some Impact Wrestling fans, all right? Sorry about your luck. But the Brewers are the best team that the Braves can be facing right now in the NLDS. All right, now, Austin says the Brewers have to come through Choplanta. Let's go, boys, on the way to the World Series. We can do this. Hashtag Chop on Bravos. Jeff says Will Smith's stats this year are almost identical to his current career stats. We're getting the normal him. It is just who he is. Yo, look, I don't disagree with you. And first off, Austin, you are right. Braves are going to have to most likely travel to Milwaukee for the first two. Then they're going to get games 3 and 4 back in Atlanta. Somebody can clinch, okay? But with what Jeff is saying, yes, if you look at Will Smith's career numbers, and I'll pull these up for you so that I'm not wrong on this. This year, 3.55 ERA. He has career saves are 85. I told you earlier that 36 was his high for the Atlanta Braves. If you look at his innings pitched, on average, it's around 77 innings, mainly because he pitched a lot for Kansas City back in 2012. But he pitched 66 innings this time. His average earned runs every single year is at 29. He has 26 earned runs this year. His average walks per year are at 27. He's got 28 this year. His average strikeouts is 88. He's got 84 this year. Everything that Will Smith is doing is basically on par with what he has done throughout his career. So don't get upset when, honestly, he averages almost 32 earned runs a season and he's only given up 27 this year. I know there's still 3 games left. Honestly, the Braves are going to need to be smart. When I say be smart, there's some guys that are probably struggling right now at the plate. You want to kind of get them the opportunities to get in, to see some pitches, to work on some stuff, and start kind of being ready for this. If you're the pitching staff, Braves are probably going to go with a few openers against the Mets. They're probably going to limit their pitching rotation. Your worst pitchers or your Drew Smileys would be a guy that I would say is most likely going to be getting some more reps just because he's going to need it, mainly because he's not going to be starting in the playoffs. Most likely your starters are going to be Morton game 1, Fried game 2, and then Ian Anderson game 3. Now, just a second ago, somebody commented, I believe it was Daniel, or no, it was Clinton. Clinton commented on Yanoa. Yanoa's back. Let's look at his game log so that you can kind of see what he's been doing so far this season, at least for the Braves, to see how much he's going to be involved with it. His last start was on the 25th against San Diego. He got a win. All right. He started the game, but he's only pitching about 4 to 5 innings. In fact, his last 5 starts, he has barely even went 5 innings. So Yanoa, and again, against the Padres, he also gave up 7 runs, but that was the game the Braves came back and it ended up winning that game in extra innings. But Yanoa is most likely going to be either your game 4 starter, depending on the situation, or you could see him coming out of the bullpen and pitching 4 to 5 innings if the Braves were to potentially go with an opener in game 3 or game 4. I feel like that would be more of a game 4 scenario so that Charlie Morton could be able to get that start in game 5 if it does go that way. And that is something that you need to be paying attention to. Clinton says Yanoa did that. Matter of fact, I want to say that Yanoa punched the wall against Milwaukee. Was that not when he went on the DL? Yes, IL, I'm sorry. May 16th against Milwaukee, he pitched 4 1/3 innings, gave up 5 runs, went in, punched the wall. That's when he was out all the way until August 17th. He has not won a game, and I emphasize this because this is going to be something when you're thinking about this rotation for the Braves. Yanoa has not won a game since May 9th against Philadelphia. He has 4 decisions since then, and all of those have been losses. Lost to Milwaukee, that's the one where he punched the wall. Lost to the Yankees, lost to San Francisco, lost to Colorado, and the rest of the games, he's got no decisions. Now, the rest of the games, he's also pitched very well, only given up 2 or 3 runs so far, and that's where you're going to be wondering about what he's going to do. Yanoa's most likely going to be a bullpen guy as well. All right, let's go back to some of these comments as we get going. Again, if you're a Braves fan, man, celebrate. This was not supposed to happen. And when July was around, there was no Braves fan that thought this was going to happen. In fact, go to the podcast at Apple Podcasts. Give us a 5-star review, by the way. We'd love you for it. If you go back and you listen to our podcast right before the trade deadline, I was talking about trading Freddie Freeman and getting a bunch of young players and re-signing Freddie Freeman at the end of the season to go along with the young players that you could have gotten for him. So trust me, I was ready to punt, okay? I was ready to, I'm going to say Johnny Townsend because that's the current Titans punter. That's who's going to be punting on Sunday. But I was ready to punt on this season. But because the New York Mets suck, you weren't able to do that. All right. Clinton says the playoff bracket sets up well for us. Got to take advantage of it. And look, it absolutely does. Honestly, I have said this multiple times. I dislike the Cardinals with a passion. Okay, I hate the Cardinals. I just do. I've always hated the St. Louis Cardinals. I don't know what it is. It's not their uniforms, because trust me, they've got some of the best uniforms in baseball. It's not their fans, because they have amazing fans. I just hate the team. I don't know why. It's not like the Yankees where they buy everybody. The Cardinals went out and did the exact same thing that the Braves did. They didn't get a bunch of big name guys. They got enough guys that put together a good core that could go with them for the next 2 months. And that's the reason why they're currently in that second wild card spot. But Braves fans, listen to me. You've got to cheer on the Cardinals. The Cardinals are going to do your dirty work, okay? If you are wanting to play in the World Series, the Cardinals are going to do your dirty work. It sounds so horrible because if you're like me, you dislike them, but you need them. You need to cheer the Cardinals on for that first wild card game that they're going to be playing, because they're going to be going up against the Dodgers. The team that came back from 2 games down, the Braves were 1 win away from the World Series last year. The team that the Braves do not want to see in the playoffs, the LA Dodgers. That team, the Cardinals can take care of in 27 outs, 9 innings. The Cardinals can knock them out. Then they'll go on and play the Giants. The Giants, to me, good team. Kevin Gausman, that was with the Braves last year, that helped the Braves get to the NLCS last year. He is pitching tremendous for the Giants. And if you ever remember the movie Little Big League, okay, I'm doing a lot of baseball movie references, okay? I haven't went to Major League yet, but I'm doing a lot of baseball references. Do you remember when the Twins had just won? They were in the Metrodome. By the way, great movie. They're in the Metrodome. They're inside of their locker room. They are watching the game. They need a loss to tie the Mariners so that they can play them in a 1-game playoff to go to the playoffs. Remember this? The pitcher, the one with the long hair that was really kind of cool, and is like, bro, I love you and all this. He looks at the TV and says, look, I know you're a good man. I know you're a great guy. But right now, I need you to die like a dog. That is what the Braves are saying to the Giants. I know that you're a bunch of good kids. You've got the grandson of one of the most famous baseball players in the world in Yaz playing for you. You have got Buster Posey, which is arguably already a Hall of Famer. You have got young players, old pitchers. You have got such a good core team. I need you to choke on it, man. I just need you to choke on it. Just so we can get Braves and Cardinals in the NLCS. And I will take my chances against the Cardinals, because the Braves owe the Cardinals something after that 5-game series 2 years ago where the Braves should have won and they just laid the biggest turd in Turner Field, Fulton County Stadium, Truist Field, SunTrust Field history, going into a Game 5 and the Cardinals scoring like 8 runs to start the game. The Braves owe the Cardinals. I want them in the NLCS, and this sets up perfectly. Cardinals do the Braves' dirty work. You knock out the Dodgers. You knock out the Giants. Braves take care of the Brewers, and then you've got Braves. You've got Cardinals. You have got the whole tomahawk chop crap because the Cardinals did something and totally messed with the Braves' heads and put out all that PR crap about, oh, we're really offended by the tomahawk chop. No, you weren't. That was 100% a strategy, a PR move that you knew that in 2019 you were going to be able to anger enough people so that the Braves had to stop doing it, and they absolutely did. But if you were listening and watching that game tonight, the Tomahawk Chop is alive and well, and you're not doing that crap 2 seasons in a row. Last year there was no fans, so hey, can't get upset about it. Braves I want the Cardinals. Give me the Cardinals. This is my Goliath. This is the Braves' Goliath. Okay, the Dodgers, if you've got to go through them, you got to play them, then you've got to play them. I would take my chances with the Giants if it comes to that. But I want the Cardinals. 2004, when 2003 happened and the Red Sox lost to the Yankees and Aaron Bleepin' Boone did what he did, the Red Sox could have went through and they could have played anybody in the ALCS. They could have went down 3-0 to anybody in the ALCS. They went up against their demon and they conquered it. I want the Cardinals after that crap they pulled 2 years ago. Okay, thank you. This has been my TED Talk. Jeff says, I was there. I was there for that disaster. It was a sad day. Dude, I cannot ever forget that day. I remember I was in Montgomery. First sign you can tell that it was really bad. I was in Montgomery, ready for this game. Everybody was fired up about it. Everybody in my building were Braves fans. We had it on. We were doing simulcasting on the 2 radio stations that I was running. We were playing it on both. We were nothing but Braves. We were ready for this game. By the end of the first inning, all right, screw it, we're done. I'd stop listening. After the first inning, I'd stop listening because it was so heartbreaking to see how that game happened. And I want the Cardinals just for that reason. I want to step on their throats. Clinton says the Tomahawk Chop ain't going nowhere. No, that was 100% a PR move. And because of the way society was in 2019, that was what screwed over the Braves. The fans were still doing it, but the team wasn't doing it because they were truly afraid that they were offending somebody on the Cardinals team, and all it was a PR stunt to get into the Braves' head, and it 100% worked. And now, 2020 happening the way that it did was probably the best thing for the Tomahawk Chop and for the Braves because they didn't have to worry about answering that question for almost a full year. And if they did play it at some point in time in the background, then it was going to be something that they were doing that was just in the stadium and nobody was tomahawk chopping and it was no big deal whatsoever. So in 2021 coming around, I remember everybody paying attention opening day going, all right, when they doing the chop? And the moment they started it, Twitter blew up. The chop is back. The chop is happening. That's because they realized that they had been had. Great job by the Cardinals. That was a PR move. And I want to get them back in the NLCS for it. Clinton says, got to get up early, go Bravos, rest Stars until game 1 next week. And look, that's going to be the part where I really think Braves are going to rest a lot of starters tomorrow against the Mets. Honestly, I would be looking at getting a few guys some reps on Monday, getting them to come in, probably play 3 or 4 innings, maybe even get a game in or get a full game in and go through the 5th inning and then pulling them after that. But you got to be smart with this. With the way that your stars have already went down with Acuna, you don't have Soroka. Ozuna was never really even there. Between all of that, you can't lose Albies. You can't lose Riley. You can't lose Duvall. You cannot lose Freeman. And obviously, none of your pitchers you can lose at this point in time unless it's Drew Smyly or Yanoa. Those are pretty much the only two. In fact, I would be pitching Yanoa and Smyly, and I would be making sure that those are the pitchers, and you go with all of your bad pitching. Sidebar? Just thinking ahead, okay? Just thinking ahead. If at some point in time the Braves could get some sort of look at Noah Syndergaard, whether it's a bullpen session, whether it may be an inning or two that he's pitching, I would totally be down with seeing how good he feels and kicking the tires. You can't officially kick the tires, but kick the tires and see how the elbow's doing. The Braves have the ability to get Syndergaard for cheap next year. Sidebar into and some stuff that could come out of this Mets series. Okay, Acuna Matata, just a wonderful phrase. Imagine when Acuna comes back with Solaire, Contreras, and Soroka back. Look, that's the other part about this. And there'll be time to talk about this and all this. By the time we're back next week, we'll be into the playoffs, and it'll be a whole different conversation, okay? But to think that the Braves have done this in 2021 without those star players, Acuna and Soroka by themselves, without those two players, you were able to do this. Now, I want to look up and I want to triple check Jorge Solaire's contract because I think the Braves actually do have him next season as well. I love Jorge Solaire. I've loved him since he has been brought into the major leagues. No, Jorge Solaire is an unrestricted free agent. So this year he's making about $8 million. So if the Braves want to bring him back, they could probably get him 1 to 2 years, 10 years per, something along those lines. Now look, the key is going to be with this, is going to be what the Braves are going to want to do contract-wise with Marcell Ozuna. If he goes through all the protocols that he needs to go through and the charges are dropped, Ozuna can come back to this team. Now, the thing about Ozuna and his contract is do the Braves want to honor the contract? Do they want to try to get rid of him? Or do they want to see if there is some way that they could get out of that deal, turn around and spend that money on Jorge Solaire if they were wanting to? Because look, I'm all on board for Jorge Solaire. I think that Jorge Solaire in this lineup, batting second or even third behind Acuna and Ozzie Albies, with Freeman behind him, and possibly even a Duvall or an Austin Riley, you were talking about 2022 and this Braves lineup being a juggernaut. And I think that Adam Duvall's contract was a 2-year deal, and he has the ability to come back next season. It may be a mutual contract, but I want to double check on that. It is, yes, the Braves do have control for 2022 if they do want to agree to the contract, which would be a $7 million deal. So that is the reason why you got to look at this. And Duvall has done amazing things for the Braves. He's been a tremendous player. Do you want to bring him back? Golden Age Gaming says, unbelievable. As a 46-year-old lifelong Braves fan, I am so proud. Hey, man, yeah, I fully get it. You remember the early 90s. You remember the 80s a little bit better than I do. You remember how bad this team was. The first time that I really saw this Braves team be as bad as they were back in the 80s before they became the team of the 90s was when they were rebuilding, before they moved over to Truist Park. And you saw a lot of bad Braves teams. And for that team to turn into this, to have their 4th straight shot at an NLCS and a World Series, to only be 1 win away from the World Series last year, and to have the opportunity for a packed out Truist Park, this is going to be extremely fun. If you have the opportunity to go to Atlanta, absolutely do so. Acuna Matata is true, and Christian Pache needs to stay healthy and consistent. That's the thing about Pache. If you, and he struggled a little bit with Gwinnett, but if you are a Nashville Sounds fan, you were able to see him for a little bit of time because of how much the Sounds were playing the Gwinnett Stripers. And honestly, towards the end of the season, Pache was playing well. All right. Now for Atlanta, he struggled. That's the reason why he got sent down. He was batting 111. But for Gwinnett, he finished the season batting 267. He had 10 home runs. He had 41 RBIs. He had 9 stolen bases. But he also had 15 doubles. And all of that was in 85 games. And that was a really solid season that he had down in Gwinnett. He still hasn't become the player that I think a lot of Braves fans are hoping for him to. Don't forget about Drew Waters that you still have down in Gwinnett as well. Those are some of the players that the Braves are going to have to make a decision with. The problem with that decision is that unfortunately you may have to use a Christian Pache, a Drew Waters in a trade to bring in pitching if you're not able to sign those pitchers in free agency next year. And that could be part of this. That's part of the deal of when you're going for it. And that is the tough avenue that general managers travel down, because the Braves, when it comes to their minor league numbers, when these players have become major leaguers, it has dropped off of their prospects list. Braves are now down around 13 or 15 for prospects. So now they're trying to build that minor league system back up. But the problem that the Braves are also finding, and we've seen it in the chat throughout the night tonight, has been bullpen, closers, things like that. You're going to have to make a decision. If you cannot sign these players in free agency, and you may have to go off and trade your Drew Waters, your Christian Paches, those types of players are going to be your expendable players that you may have to send off if you think you are a player away from winning the World Series. I don't think the Braves are a World Series team this year. I still think that they're a pitcher or two away. I think that they still need to do some stuff with the bullpen. But as far as the offense is concerned, this is a World Series offense. The only thing that the Braves are lacking going into the playoffs right now would be speed. They're not much of a base stealing team. And I think that is something that Ronald Acuna Jr. really did help out with when it came to the Braves and the stolen bases numbers. I mean, your 2 stolen base leaders is Ozzie Albies and Ronald Acuna Jr. Your next highest is Dansby Swanson with 9. Ozzie Albies has 19. Acuna had 17. Dansby has 9. Outside of that, do you know who is currently on the active Braves roster? Who is 3rd in stolen bases for the Atlanta Braves? This, I'll give you I'll count to 5. 4, 3, 2, 1. Freddie Freeman is 3rd on stolen bases with the Atlanta Braves. That's where Christian Pache would have been very beneficial. The other part about this that really kind of sucks for the Braves is because of the way that the minor league system was set up this year, that you weren't able to bring up minor league players. Now, they probably wouldn't have played as much as they normally would because the Braves were in a pennant race. But like the next 3 games, using those minor league players would have been a huge, huge advantage to trying to see who you could have put on your playoff roster. The only thing that sucks about Major League Baseball that I really think that they need to change is if you don't have a player on your active or your 40-man roster by September 1, they're not eligible for the playoffs. Whereas, heck, I want to say last season, the Chiefs signed a guy in the playoffs to start for them. Like, they brought him off the street. In the NFL, you can do that. I think with the NBA, you've got to be on the roster before the season ends. But with Major League Baseball, you've got to be on the roster a month before the season's over with. And I really wish that they would change that, because the next 3 days and those next 3 games with the New York Mets could be very beneficial in trying to figure out maybe a 24th or 25th man to either add to your bullpen or to your playoff roster. The only other thing about this that you do need to remember as we're going into the playoffs next week is Your NLDS roster is just that for the NLDS. The only way that the Braves are going to be able to add a player after their NLDS roster is set is if there is a major injury, like a Ronald Acuna Jr. type injury, where they are going to be out for the season or the rest of the playoffs or even the rest of the NLDS, and then you can bring somebody onto the roster. If not, you just go at it with 24 guys. You just go at it with 25 guys. You cannot add anybody else. So whoever they add on the NLDS roster, pay attention. A lot of times Snitker has made the idea of going with more pitchers so that they have more arms. Sometimes he's went with more hitters. This is his fourth time in a row to do this. Let's see what he does. Capsule Sick hops in. He says, with a fourth NL East title in a row, do you think that will matter if they don't make a deep run this postseason? Look, I think that a lot of Braves fans had already given up on this season after Acuna got injured in Miami, that all of this now is all just extra. A lot of times, baseball is seen as the sport that gets you from basketball to football. And once you get college football and once you get the NFL season started, anything else after that is a positive. For the Braves to be doing what they did in September, and as you're going through, whether you're a Titans fan, a Falcons fan, or whatever fan you are, to be able to also be paying attention to the Braves, to have them on Monday through Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday have them on a secondary television, this has been an amazing season. And I don't think that there's a single Braves fan that will be angry if they lose in the NLDS. Now, do they want to win the NLDS? Yes. Do you want to go in and get swept? No. Are the Brewers the hands down best matchup that the Atlanta Braves could have to possibly make it back to the NLCS? Absolutely. But everything after tonight is icing on the cake, man, because 2 months ago, again, if you just hopped in, on August 6th, on August 5th, the Braves were below 500. They weren't even a 500 team 2 months ago. And now they're playing, and they're going to be playing in the NLDS against the Milwaukee Brewers. This and what Alex Anthopoulos did over the course of the trade deadline and basically getting these players to recreate Ronald Acuna Jr., which is what they did. Go back to the Moneyball reference. If you missed it, the Braves weren't able to find somebody to replace Ronald Acuna Jr. They found a group of players to recreate him. That's what Duvall, Solaire, and Jacques Peterson did. Side note, does anybody know why I was wearing the pearl necklace last night? I got asked that on Twitter. I have no idea why he was wearing the pearl necklace. I really, really don't. So if you know, shoot me a tweet at Joe Hunk, because I'm really kind of curious about this myself. Jeff says, and we're going to wrap up with Jeff's question right after this, the only things I feel like could derail this playoff run would be inconsistent hitting and relief pitching. I think our starters are good enough to make it happen. I think starting pitching-wise, the Braves may be better than last year, because last year the Braves did go with an opener in the NLCS because it was AJ Minter. They didn't have three players pitchers they really kind of believed in because Soroka had already been injured. With Charlie Morton, and guess what, guys? We can finally say it. Charlie Morton, this is why the Atlanta Braves signed you. The last 2 weeks are why the Atlanta Braves signed you. For what you did in Tampa, for what you did in Houston, this is why the Braves paid that money to bring you on this team. You were brought on this team for the playoffs. Now it is your time to shine, and you've been pitching fantastic for the last few weeks. In fact, it's probably been over the last few months. He's been pitching fantastic. This is why the Braves brought Charlie Morton on. AJ Minter has been pitching tremendously since he got brought back from Gwinnett as well. Yes, Will Smith is going to give you a heart attack. No, I do not want to go into the top or bottom of the ninth with only a 1-run lead while he's pitching, but he's pitching much better. And the thing about the playoffs, this is what you need to know. Okay, and this is why when you look at the Braves lineup, all right, and I'll show you Milwaukee's here in just a second because that's who the Braves are going to go. But talking about this is where somebody like an Austin Riley, who's batting .302 right now, Freddie Freeman batting .299, those players are going to be extremely important. Jorge Solaire batting .269, Eddie Rosario batting .272. The playoffs are about contact hitting and velocity. That is why these Braves pitchers that are throwing 96 to 100 miles per hour, this is why they're going to be extremely valuable come playoff time. When you look at the Milwaukee Brewers, they have one player batting over .270 right now that's going to be playing for this team coming in October. One player, Omar Narvaez. He's the only one batting .271. Willie Adames, former Ray. God, I wish they hadn't traded you, but they had to. He's batting .289, and nobody else. Colton Wong. Those three guys are batting somewhere. They do not have a 300 hitter on this team, and that is the reason why contact hitting with a little bit of luck and getting a little elevation on a line drive, that's where this is going to be most important. The Braves are a better hitting team. Starting pitching, you're going to give to the Milwaukee Brewers. Relief pitching from the middle innings, they got Hunter Strickland, who's pitching very well right now, but so is AJ Minter. I would give that as a push. Closer, I'm going to give that to the Brewers because Josh Hader is just amazing. Offensively, though, the Braves are better than the Milwaukee Brewers offensively. This is where they're going to have to take advantage of this coming into the series. We will be back next Thursday. Depending on what time the Braves play, we may be doing another post-game show the way that we did tonight. We'll play it by ear. Make sure that you follow me on Twitter at Joe Hunk. 1045 The Zone is another spot that we're obviously going to be shooting out a ton of tweets, letting you know when we're going to be going live. We will be recapping. We'll be keeping you updated on that. We'll continue talking baseball as throughout the week as well. You can shoot me your tweets and we can talk that way as well. I will see you tomorrow on 3HL. Before we hang up like we're on the phone together. Hey, buddy, got to let you go. Pray for me tomorrow. I've got Ramon Foster and Ronald Slay. And that's it. No Don. No Brent. Me and Slay and Ramon. Pray for me, if you will. We'll see you next Thursday.